You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we go beyond our traditional stomping grounds of them their meme stocks these days. Support and AMC and everything else lighting it up out there in meme land, and of course your VIXs and your Apples. Go a little bit beyond all that fun stuff. Get into the world of crypto. Going to talk the skew, the volume, the volatility, the unusual activity, and a whole bunch more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Reminding you there are a legion of ways to get access to our content. Of course, it's available on pretty much every platform under the sun on demand. So if you want to subscribe out there on your Apple Podcasts or your Google Podcasts or your Spotifys or your Stitchers, or you want to get our app in a lot of the different app stores, it's all available there for you on demand. If you want to engage a little more, get in there when the show's live. We have the Plus available for you. And of course, if you want to go beyond and get some exclusive content as well, including some great pro Q&As out there, a lot of great minds we're bringing to the table for you guys to pick here on the network. Well, then check out the Pro, the place to go for that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That's the place to go. And of course, however you listen live after the fact, keep hitting us up, questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom. If you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing in your stores. It really does help all the new folks discover the content. And let's see what we're going to discover today as we dive right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody. Time for the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Of course, we're talking about the big dog, BTC, coming into today's show a little bit lower, a little bit smaller than it was this time last week. Last week, we were just shy of the 49,400 level on the show. Today, we're just shy of the 48,300 level. So we're down about 1,100 handles almost exactly from this time last week. Had a bit of a range, but not a big one for Bitcoin over the course of the past week. The high was about just a little bit shy of 50K, 49,860. And on the low, we got about 46,359 or so. So not quite as expansive of a range as we've seen in weeks past. And of course, lighter range, a little bit lighter action out there means we're going to see vol continue to come in. Again, everyone who was confused, everyone who voted for Bitcoin in our question of the week from a few weeks back on what has the highest 30-day at-the-money volatility. Right now, the vol in Bitcoin, an 81%. When we did the show last week, it was about an 85%. And, of course, VVIX, which is the volatility of volatility, listen to any of our other shows, has pretty much never been below 100 since the pandemic began. So just something to bear in mind out there. Bitcoin has this perception, this reputation of being the most volatile asset on the planet, but not quite there in reality. Again, about an 81% coming into showtime. So certainly volatile, but there are many equities, let alone volatility itself, that is more volatile out there these days. And let's look at BitVol. It's been a little while since we checked in on that BitVol. Of course, our friend Simon Ho's Bitcoin VIX. It was at about a 96 the last time we checked in on it. It's at about a 92.3 or so right now. So lagging behind a little bit of the at-the-money vol out there in Bitcoin right now. Still a little bit elevated. Still hanging out in the 90s. We'll see if it can hang out there for a while or if it will begin to trend lower like the rest of the vol is out there. In terms of the skew, that has also trended lower. Last week, the skew was about a positive 2.5. This week, about 1.5. So coming in a little bit there on the skew front as well. Same deal kind of across the board. I guess you can call this a great coming in week on Bitcoin here because you saw the OI come in as well. That's because August went the way of the dodo this week. We'll get to that in a little bit. The calls coming into showtime, call open interest. Remember, Bitcoin has traditionally been call dominated out there, and that remains the case out there. About 108,600 calls open, up about 1,600 from this time last week. Puts this week, though, down to about 52,000. That's down nearly 5,000 contracts from this time last week. And talk about coming in, we saw August go the way of the dodo, took over 35,000 contracts worth of open interest with it this week. So now the number one spot falls to September there with about 55,000 contracts. That's up about 7,000. So SEP gaining a little bit, but not enough to make up for the loss of August there. December also at about 48,500. That's up about 2,000. So those two up slightly. Then we have a newcomer to the top three, but again, it's not going to last for that long. It's the weekly expiring this week. Got about 12,300 contracts open. So not a heck of a lot there. So we'll have to expect another monthly contract to slot into there pretty soon. In terms of the notional value of the open interest, and again, I'm not a huge fan of quoting things in notional value. Look at my recent chat with Sahib over there on Reuters about that on Twitter. Not a big fan of notional, but this is kind of the lingua franca in the crypto space, at least for now. So about the notional value of that OI is still around 8 billion on Deribit. It was about 8 billion last week, about 8 billion this week. You add up all the other venues, you get somewhere around 9 billion. The most active of those, most sizable of those is LedgerX with about 275 million open out there right now. All the rest of them pretty much at 200 million or below. In terms of volume this week, we had one decent day. That was the 27th with right around a billion worth of notional changing hands. Again, about 983 million. Remember on our last show, we were excited to finally see a 1B level. That was back on August 20th. So we've touched or flirted with 1 billion now a couple of times in the last few weeks. So that's a little bit of a sign that maybe volume is starting to trickle back in out there after a pretty light summer period for the most part. But the rest of the days were much lower than that. So not a ton of paper outside of that, but a decent week, all things considered out there. In terms of OI, where are you folks lining up right now? Well, like I said, we retreated a little bit in Bitcoin down from the 50,000 strike or close to it this week. So you might think 50K would be in the number one spot, but no, it actually is the par strike, the 100,000 strike, dominating the OI out there in Bitcoin right now. So that ever optimistic strike, it has grown in open interest and taken the top spot as the 50K strike drops. 100,000 strike has 10,500 contracts open this week. That's up about 1,300 from this time last week. So a decent increase and enough, I said, for the number one spot out there this week. Number two is the 50,000 strike. That's got about 9,000 contracts open. That's actually down about 1,500. So par strike and 50,000 strike kind of swapping spots here this week. So again, 100,000. That's an interesting / optimistic strike. Probably a lot of selling paper on that strike, I would hope. The other side of verticals and spreads going up there on the par strike. Nonetheless, action on the 100,000 strike once again. Number three is the 60,000 strike. About 7,600 contracts open there, down about 300. Again, it was down 300 the week before, and now down about 300 this week as well. So it continues to erode ever so slightly on the 60K strike, but still good enough for number three. Number four, the 20,000 strike. That seems decently in the rearview mirror now as well, with about 6,800. In fact, we have a tie for the bottom of our top five here. The 20,000 strike has about 6,800 contracts open. And so does, guess what? The 200,000 strike, the one we were joking with Greg on the show last week about. Both of those at about 6,800 contracts open. The 200,000 strike actually up nearly 1,000 contracts this week. So that's gaining, while the 20,000 strike down a couple hundred. So they're both hanging out around the 6,800 level. Both of them for a tie there at the bottom of our top five, the 200,000 strike listeners. If you thought 100,000 was optimistic, 200K lighting it up this week. In terms of lighting it up, not a ton going up out there on CME. We had one decent day. It was Friday with 138 contracts. Again, that's a pretty beefy 5X contract. So 140 roughly contracts going up. That's a decent day. You're talking about 700 for your traditional, one coin contracts out there. In terms of OI, that's up about almost 1,200 contracts open out there right now. So getting a little bit more respectable out there, but still a long way to go. The futures, decent week last week as well. Busiest day was about 11,000 contracts. The rest of the week was pretty far below. The OI creeping up, though, up to about 7,600. It's up about 700 from this time last week. If you've been listening to the show for a while, that the Bitcoin futures used to do around easily 20,000 contracts a day, so they've come off it quite a bit of late. We'll see if later on in the summer into September we'll kickstart some of that volume out there. But the micros have been where a lot of you have been asking about and interested in, and they're holding pretty steady out there these days as well. Most days are in the 12 to 15,000 range. That's pretty much been the case this past week as well. The OI dropping a bit down to about 21,400. It's down about 1,100 from just in the last couple of weeks out there. But still, that's a contract you guys seem to be interested in. And I understand it makes most sense from a size perspective. And it seems to be holding steady out there as well. Let's see if the altcoin universe, though, is holding steady.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody. It is time to explore the altcoin universe. We're going to kick it off breaking down the top 10 out there. Number 10 is actually Greg from Genesis, who was on the show last week talking about his new favorite, which is Polkadot. Still holding firm at number 10 with about 25.5, which should be 20, about 25.2 billion. Again, take these market caps with an overall grain of salt, but the rankings, I think, are where the value lies. Number 9, USD coin, about 27.25 billion. Number 8, Solana with about 31.3 billion. Number 7, it's the Doge with about 36.5 billion. Number 6, XRP, 52, almost 53 billion. Number 5, it's Tether, 65.5 billion. Number 4, Binance coin, holding out there close to 80 billion. Number 3, Cardano at 280. Nice little nice interesting level here for Cardano at about 90, almost 90.5 billion. Number 2, it's ETH at about 385, almost 386 billion. And the big dog, a little bit lighter this week at about 908 billion worth of market cap, still shy of the 1T level out there. Let's get down to the number 2 in terms of market cap. I know the number 1 in a lot of your hearts. That is ETH. ETH taking a bit of a break this week as well. A small break down about 34 1/3 handles from this time last week. Last week we were hanging out at about 33.22 or so. Coming into today's show is at about 32.88. Still far north of the levels it was at not too long ago out there, shy of 2,000 out there. So a nice rebound in the last month and change for ETH. The high on the week we saw hit about 33.60 or so, close to it. The low was last Thursday at about 3,058 or so. So decent range, not a huge range out there for ETH. In terms of vol, let's break it down. By the way, all these stats, as always, coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Genesis Volatility. You can find out more for yourselves. gvol.io is the place to go. Kick the tires and light the fires. You can break down all these analytics and a whole bunch more. If you're even modestly intrigued by this space, then you really don't have many places to go in terms of learning about this stuff. So check it out, gvol.io. Tell them you learned about it on the Options Insider. They'll be super excited. Greg and his team will be super jazzed to hear that you've been listening to them on the show. In terms of 1 hour vol out there, again, kind of we said the trend across the board has kind of been coming in, and it's coming in on the ETH vol front as well. Last show, it was threatening triple digits at about a 98%. Today, at about a 93%. Still frothy, still firm, but not quite as frothy as it was this time last week. Last show, the skew was pretty frothy at about a 10.3. This week, coming in quite a bit, down to about a 3.5. So almost 7 points in a swing to the dark side there for the skew. Notional volume out there on ETH, again, it's pretty much all Deribit when it comes to ETH. The only other one even putting up any numbers is really, and I say any with kind of not much, is pretty much you got OKEX and Bit.com doing a couple of million each, but that's really nothing compared to what's going on out there on the Deribit front. But let's look here. Let's see. The most active day this week was the 27th on Deribit with about 336 million. So again, we have seen some 1B days as recently as May. Not quite there this week, but compared to recent weeks where we were seeing 150 million worth of notional going up and things like that, it's actually a decently active week. Again, it all comes down to your frame of reference. OI-wise, let's see what's going on from an ETH OI perspective. Kind of similar to what we saw on Bitcoin, where we saw a decent move in the calls and then the puts coming in. So let's see, the calls, 814,000 contracts open in ETH this week. That's down about 28,000. And we saw the puts down about 43,000 down to about 395,000. So again, the coming in trend also striking ETH. Of course, that's because we have another month going off the board here. Notional value of that OI still hanging out around 4 billion out there. So not a heck of a lot of change there. Of course, the biggest change was effectively we had August going the way of the dodo this week. That took a decent amount of paper with it. So the new number one out there is Dees with 431,000. It's up about 16,000 contracts from this time last week. Number two, it's SEP. Again, ETH tends to love a quarterly. You'll see more about that in a second. Number two, SEP, 327,000 contracts, up about 30,000. And then a newcomer to the top three in ETH, it's March. So they skip past everything else, go straight to March. It's 145,000 contracts open there. It's a far cry from the other two, but again, give it time. It is March after all. In terms of strikes, where the action, the interest, the sizable positions are in ETH options right now, the number one is still the 5,000 strike, holding pretty steady around 87,000 contracts, down about 1,000 or so from this time last week, but not a huge change. We got the biggest change probably coming on the 10,000 strike. So we thought the 100,000 strike was optimistic in Bitcoin. The 10,000 strike here in ETH, number two, 62,500 contracts open. It's up about 5,200 contracts in this time last week. So a big change on the 10,000 strike. Number three, we got the 4,000 strike at about 48,600 contracts. Opens up about 1,800 from this time last week. Number four, the 8,000 strike with about 40,000. In fact, just like Bitcoin, we have a tie for the bottom of our top five here between the 8,000 and the 6,000 strike. Both of them have about 40,000 contracts open. The 8,000 strike dropped about 2,000 this week, and the 6,000 strike dropped about 1,300 this week. So intriguing stuff afoot. Not a ton of interest out there on the CME ETH futures front. Even though they had a decent day back last week on the 25th, they did about 6,750 contracts or so, which actually is a pretty decent day for them. Every other day is around 5,000 or less. The OI still hanging out around 4,000 contracts. That's pretty much unched, so not a huge change from an OI perspective. I think folks are still waiting for maybe a micro to list out there as well. In terms of the rest of the altcoin front that you folks like to watch, Ripple taking a break this week, down about 10 cents from this time last week. Bitcoin Cash down about 21, and Bitcoin SV down actually about a third of a cent out there. And ye old Doge off nearly 4 cents from last week. Now let's get out to answer some of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, welcome to the Crypto Questions, a portion of the show where we shine a light on your questions. Sometimes we shine that light on you in terms of letting you weigh in on what your thoughts are on various questions that are top of mind for a lot of our audience these days. Well, last week we asked you guys a pretty interesting one. We said, we've seen a lot of turbulence in the broad market. I said, again, you could maybe equate some of that to crypto as well in terms of the turbulence out there. We said, what do you feel is the main driver of this latest round of vol? We gave you 4 choices: Delta variant, Afghanistan, Fed tapering concerns, and overall market valuation concerns. And number one was the Fed tapering, 54, almost 55%, followed by number 2, the Delta variant, 19.6%. Number 3, market valuation concerns at about 13.7%. And bringing up the rear was Afghanistan with 11.8%. This week, getting a little bit more crypto relevant again, we asked you a very simple, very straightforward question this week. We thought, which of these levels do you think we have the best chance of hitting first? Gave you 4 choices. A VIX of 13, so seeing volatility come in a decent amount out there. It's hovering in the 16 to 17 handle these days. So that's a decent retreat on the vol front. Bitcoin of 60,000. So seeing Bitcoin march past 50 and keep on going all the way to 60. It kind of retreated off of it this week. S&P rallying north to about a 47.50. So a decent run, 200, 250 handles or so from where it is right now. Or gold getting the march back to the upside up to about 2,000. Remember, that was a level we saw not too long ago. Then it has retreated from it pretty much steadily ever since. Coming into showtime, let's see how the voting is lining up. Let's see. It just went live earlier today here, right before our option block program. And it seems like right now, the S&P is winning. It was a tie earlier today between Bitcoin and the S&P. Right now, the S&P is winning it with almost 38% of the vote, 37.9 saying the S&P at 47.50 is going to be the first one that we see on the board there. Bitcoin, 60,000, hot on its heels at about 34.5%, followed by a VIX of 13, 20.7%, bringing up the rear gold, 6. And it just ticked now. 6. You know what? Just ticked as I'm talking. And the folks on the crypto front bringing back Bitcoin, because now it is tied once again. They're both at 35.5% for Bitcoin, 60,000, and S&P 47.50. VIX at 13, now about 22.6% and 6.5% for gold. Don't agree? You want to see Bitcoin take the lead out there? Get on over there at Options on Twitter, listeners. Make your voice heard. It should be pinned there. If not, just scroll down a little bit. You'll see it in our tweets for the polls. We retweet it throughout the week. You have pretty much till the end of the week to get your vote in there. Then we'll let you know how it fared on this show, I should say, this time next week. All right, next up, we got a question from Lewis. He says, do you think PayPal will offer crypto trading as well? And he sent in a link to this article saying PayPal is exploring a stock trading platform for its U.S. customers. If you haven't heard this news, listeners, we talked about it earlier today on the option block. They're saying PayPal going to dip its toes, perhaps, in the trading waters. They've hired an industry veteran, what they term a brokerage industry veteran, to lead this venture they're calling Invest at PayPal. So it's kind of a new secret division of the company. A couple of sources, they say, are confirming that this is going on behind the scenes. So it seems like they're still a ways away from announcing this platform. I mean, hiring someone, that's a long way from launching a platform and launching a product. But that said, it's kind of a no-brainer for them. They are in the payment side of the space. They're seeing the kind of money that your Coinbases and also your Robinhoods are making out there these days. So I'm sure PayPal wants a piece of that action. Do I think they're going to launch with crypto? Probably not. I think they're probably going to do, as they're saying here, start around the low-cost equities side of the space. That's pretty straightforward. You can line up some nice payment for order flow and have a nice little business around that pretty quickly. Do I think they will offer crypto? Yeah, I think if you look at the Venn diagram of the customer that they're going for, kind of that younger type of, not millennial, but more even like the Gen Z type clientele, they're interested in the meme stocks and they're interested, of course, in crypto. So those two Venn diagrams overlap pretty strongly. So if they don't launch with it, they're probably going to have it pretty soon down the road. That's just a no-brainer for them. So PayPal, yeah, to answer your question, Lewis, I do think they will offer crypto trading. Probably not right away. And certainly for our audience, they want options trading. I don't think PayPal is going to launch with a robust options offering anytime soon either. That will come with time once they get their sea legs under them in terms of the trading side. But interesting, we've seen a lot of brokers go the way of the dodo in the option space. Most of them have been acquired. So it'd be nice to have some new blood, add some crypto and everything else to it as well. Interesting to see. I know PayPal, a bit of a divisive name out there. Some of you have had bad experiences with them. Some of you like them. Some people were excited when they heard this news. So kind of a bit of a mixed bag out there. We'll see how this goes. Are you comfortable putting large amounts of your capital with PayPal? I guess that will be the question. Last up, we got a silly one here from Henry. He was asking about this on our Options Oddity show on Friday. He wants to know a follow-up. He says, hey, Mark, did you take home any money on the Woodley-Paul fight? No, I didn't. Remember I said on Friday, Henry, that I was just going to have a bit of a flyer on Woodley just for fun because I've watched him for years, and I didn't think, he was an underdog, so they enticed me. The odds were enough to put a little bit, but not a ton. And obviously, Woodley did not win. He took one scorecard, which I thought even that was kind of questionable. I did watch it. I didn't pay for it, thank God. But I was able to see the highlights and everything else. And it wasn't a great performance by either of them. Wasn't super interesting, but I guess what do you expect? It's kind of celebrity boxing at this point, right? So I had fun with it, but I didn't take home a lot. But then again, I didn't wager a lot. So it was kind of just made it more fun to watch out there. All right, everybody. That music means we've come to the end. Kind of a quick Just the Facts episode this week. We'll be back with the crypto hot seat and everything else you come to expect from us this time next week. Of course, those of you on the pro front get a great pro Q&A coming up tomorrow. We've got John Smolin, a guy who has pretty much done it all, been part of it all in the world of options. If you have a lot of great questions about, pro trading, how pros really trade options, he's managed trading crews on the floor of the SIBO. He was an MD for Goldman on the options front for a long time, now hanging his hat over there at MIAX. So there's a guy who's kind of been there and done that in the world of options. You have questions about, position management, how professionals really trade and structure their options trades. He's a great guy to ask. He'll be joining us tomorrow on the Pro Q&A. Of course, after that, you're getting your advisor's option taste as well, so stay tuned for that. That's coming up this time tomorrow. Then, of course, on Wednesday, we've got your double dose of education, which for folks listening to this show, you should really check out Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio if you haven't already. Those are two great educational programs. So if these topics are thrown around here, volatility, skew, things like that are a little bit confusing, Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio, great, easy ways to get started with options. You can learn from A to Z at your own time, on your own schedule. Hundreds of episodes available for each of those. You can sit back and enjoy. By the time you listen to those, you have a pretty strong understanding of what's going on in the world of options. Thursday, of course, you got This Week in Futures Options. Another show you folks listening to this should check out because we do delve into crypto there, as well as episode 2 of the Option Block. Friday, volatility views, and then options oddities after that. I did misspeak earlier. I forgot we have the Labor Day holiday next Monday. So we're off for crypto next Monday, but we'll see you back the following week for another Crypto Rundown.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.